Hello guys, my topic for open source technology is data-centric AI. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so just let me just introduce myself. So I'm Navin Kumarar and my roll number is 20CS901009 and I'm from MSc CS Computer Science. Okay, let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so what all we'll be talking about in this particular PPT is what is a data-centric AI and difference between there are actually two approaches regarding this AI and the difference between the data-centric AI and model-centric approach. These are the two approaches as I was telling earlier, and implementation of a data-centric approach. So we'll be looking at the implementation and the essential features while implementing a data-centric approach. We'll be looking at that also. So let's go to the next slide. So what is data-centric AI? This is the first content in this particular PPT and we'll be discussing. So I browsed a lot of website and I referred a lot of books. So this is the simplest definition which we can get for data-centric AI. Data-centric AI is a way in which we systematically engineer a particular data so that it can be used to build an AI system. Okay, so and what is an AI system? For example, we can take Siri and Alexa for example. So what they do is what is the main purpose of this AI system is to understand what the user wants and to interact with that accordingly, right? So there will be a lot of voices and they should understand the particular words, they should translate it, they should convert it into their understanding and they should do it. So this and all will be done in that particular AI system. So this is what the clear explanation which was found, and this is the simplest explanation for data-centric AI. So we'll go to the next slide. So in this is the second content in our particular PPT, and it tells us what is the difference between a data-centric approach. There are actually two approaches. So it tells us what is the difference between a data-centric approach and the model-centric approach. Okay. So first we'll be looking at a model-centric AI. So what is a model-centric AI does is it working on a code is a central objective for this model-centric AI. Whereas if you compare it with the data-centric AI, the working on a data is a central objective. Okay, here the code is a central objective in model-centric, whereas in the data-centric approach, the data is a central objective. And second difference is optimizing the model so it can deal with the noise in the data. And whereas in data-centric AI, rather than gathering more data, more investment is being made in the data quality tools to work on noisy data. So the third difference is inconsistent data labels, whereas data consistency is a key in this particular data-centric AI. Whereas model-centric AI, the model is improved iteratively. Okay, so with one type it goes on increasing iteratively, but whereas in data-centric AI, iterated the data quality. So we'll move on to the next slide. So how a data-centric approach can be implemented? There are actually two ways for implementing a data-centric approach. The first one is eye-level customization is required. So unlike media and advertising industries, a manufacturing business with several goods cannot use a single machine learning system to detect production fault across all its products. Instead, each manufactured product would require a distinctly trained ML model. And the second point is while media companies can afford to have an entire ML department working on each and every little organization problem, a manufacturing business that requires several ML solution cannot follow such a template in terms of size. This is the first approach, and we'll go to the next slide and look into the second approach. So this is second approach for implementing a data-centric approach. Okay, so second approach is importance of a large data sets. This data-centric approach involves and it gives more importance in the large data sets. Okay, so in more cases, companies do not have a large number of data points to work with. Instead, they are often forced to deal with tiny data sets which are prone to disappointing outcomes if their approaches is model-centric. Whereas now in the second point which we can see is the data is extremely important in AI research, and adopting a strategy that prioritizes obtaining high quality data is critical. After all, relevant data is not just rare and noisy but also extremely expensive to get. The idea is that AI should be treated in the same way that we would care for the greatest materials while building a house. They should be evaluated at each point rather than as one-time event. These are the two approaches which we'll be looking at in the data centric approach. And now we'll go to the next slide and look into the fourth topic. So this is the fourth content in this particular PPT, and in this we'll be looking at the essential factors which should be considered while implementing a data-centric approach. The first factor which should be considered is data label quality. Okay, and the second factor is data augmentation, and feature engineering will be the third consideration, and the fourth consideration will be the data versioning. And if you go to the next slide, we'll look into the particular ML engineering example. Okay, so it is very easy for you guys to understand. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so this is the basic data-centric application of ML data-centric application. Okay, so first the data is collected, and then it has been sent to data processing, and it is involved in a lot of evaluation, ML modeling, training evaluations, and hyperparameter tuning and training again. And if it's not if it's not up to the mark, it's been sent again and it has been into a loop. And then if it is properly done, it has been deployed, and then evaluation has been taken. The evaluation takes place in every set of every steps. So while data collection, evaluation is taking place, data pre-processing, evaluation is taking place, and while deployment, the evaluation is taking place. So this is a basic centric application in a data centric application. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. So thank you guys. This is the end of a PPT, and I hope you guys understood what is AI, data-centric AI, and difference between data-centric AI and model-centric AI, and factors and implementation processes, approaches which can be done for data-centric AI. And you understood the basic examples, I hope, and yeah, thank you.